Well, I've always been sort of interested in why OTAs don't just create that tour tab, and so Jason Calacanis, who's a well-known, angel investor, has some really big hits with Airbnb and others. He interviewed Glenn Fogel, the CEO of Booking.com, and asked Glenn at part of the conversation, the increase in experiences, because he's getting companies that are applying to his incubator. And Glenn's take on it was that, well, he really classified it as excursions. He really sees flight, hotel, once you get there, seeing, getting on a tour bus and going around the city, and that's your experience. I just thought, well, he's just missing the entire opportunity when it comes to specialty cruises or cruises in general or multi-day tours, and what the focus is of these trips and the destinations, and really having a unique experience.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition, Season 3 of Travel Trends. Today, I have an amazing panel with me to talk about technology in 2024. All the things you need to know to better prepare your travel business, or if you're looking to get into the travel business, understanding how technology really fuels our entire industry and the points of connectivity with cruise and tour. And I've brought together a really excellent panel. Thanks in part to Rebecca Esterhuizen. I've got Rebecca here from Traveltek, and I've got Kelly Tompkins from ReserveX. And then I've got Ragnar, and that's what I say. Ragnar is a legend to me. It's the first time we're meeting. I know Kelly and Rebecca, but the first time I'm meeting the legend of Ragnar. And I said to him, there's absolutely no way I'm going to be able to pronounce your surname. And I think, Ragnar, you said, I think there's 3 people from Iceland with very distinctive names, and you're one of them. The other one is what, Bjork and...
Well, my example was there's Bjork, Siv, and me, and that's the only first name people that you need to know.
I watched Vikings. I loved it. Ragnar is my favorite character. So, but obviously people can look you up afterwards. But I'm very keen to have this conversation with you all and make sure that you're able to give the proper introductions to who you are and what you've done. So we'll start with Rebecca from Traveltek. If you mind giving us an overview of your background in travel and the business you're running today.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Dan. So I'm the Senior Vice President for Traveltek. I throw a lot of people off with my accent. I've been in Canada for the last 12 months, but I was out in Brisbane in Australia for the last couple of years. Well, I say a couple of years, 5 years with Traveltek, and then, 6 years with Traveltek and a year in Canada. So I've been with the business for around 7 years, and I currently run our North America division based in Toronto. Traveltek itself, we've been in the leisure industry for 23 years. We are based out of the UK, but we have satellite offices spread across the world. So very much a global business. We've got offices in Australia, India, North America, Spain, as well as our team that's scattered across the UK as well. We predominantly operate in the cruise space. Cruise is our core product. We are one of only a few aggregators globally. We offer a wide range of products, though, around our core product, cruise. So we have hotel flight connectivity. We work with the large GDSs, the large hotel bed banks. We've got transfers, attractions, car hire, and so on. So as a travel partner, one of our travel partners, you really have access to a full wide range of inventory. From my kind of remit, I am responsible for the commercial and operational growth in North America. We've had a very exciting year this year, launching our new cruise product to the market as of the 1st of November. So it's been quite a busy, hectic year, and 2024 is certainly looking not to be any quieter. So yeah, it's lovely to meet you all.
Yeah, terrific to have you here. And especially knowing you're just down the street from me in Toronto over in Oakville. It's great to have you in Canada. But it's also having, because I love Australia, and it's terrific that you're decided to be based here with your family. But we've got a really global discussion here because now we have Kelly Tompkins, who is also another legendary figure in this industry. And I've known him for more than a decade because we've had a lot of overlap at G Adventures and the Travel Corporation and all of his background in tours and activities. He lived in the US for nearly 20 years, and he's come back to Canada and lives in Calgary now and working on his new venture. So Kelly, please give everyone an overview of all your major accomplishments and then what you've turned your attention to now.
Yeah, great to be here. My background for the last 25 years is building online travel companies. I started in Silicon Valley in Palo Alto, a company called Internet Travel Network, which was the very first web-based booking system in 95, 96. And I was one of the first employees, and we grew that company, IPO'd it, and then Sabre bought it. And from there, just started doing my own companies. And in 2002, founded a company called LeisureLink, which was one of the first vacation rental booking systems that connected to OTAs and travel agencies and GDSs. And then started in 2006, my personal passion, which is adventure travel and cycling, built a company called AdventureLink. And we had a partnership with STA Travel to provide a SaaS-based booking platform for multi-day tours. The pandemic sort of created some headwinds for us, and STA unfortunately went out of business. And so 4 years later, I've started a new company called ReserveX, and it's sort of the next generation of booking, a booking platform for multi-day tours and other types of experiences. And we're just launching the business now.
Oh, it's awesome. It's perfect timing to have you on the show, given not only your incredible legacy in this industry, but the fact there's no one better positioned than you on the comeback of travel to be able to introduce the technology, because you have all the learnings from what worked before, and then some of the discussions we're going to have today about what's changed and what's evolved. But people love adventure travel, that's for sure. And so we'll definitely get into that, Kelly. And now on these topics, this is, I want to introduce the legendary Ragnar, because this is the first time we've met. This is the coolest thing about where we've gotten to with travel trends, and is that Ragnar I've heard about for years, and this is the first time that him and I have joined a call together. And so I had been told many legends about you, about how smart you are and how young you are, and how you've been so ambitious in growing this company, and there wouldn't be any better person to add to the show than yourself. So I appreciate you making your time, but now it's your turn to tell everyone why they should pay attention to everything that you're doing with Kaptio.
Oh God, I'm not gonna meet that stunting introduction. Thank you. No, and it's great to be here. And well, not as young as I used to be. Definitely been working on this industry and this sector for a long time. I found myself growing up in one of the most beautiful places, I think, in the world, to Southeast Iceland, where, you sort of saw from a very early age, what true tourism growth looks like, because you see each summer just more and more people falling in love with Iceland and our corner of the world. And that was very inspiring, entrepreneurially. My parents have always been building tourism businesses, I was the youngest one, so I didn't see any of the failures. I only saw the successes, so and they had me when they were sort of in a period of their life where they were, getting all that hard work paid off, and the tourism boom really at its peak. So, that was a transformational experience, at an early age. And then, coming from Iceland, you kind of have this tribal protection of, a great entrepreneur ecosystem, a great investor ecosystem. And that's really just helped us at Kaptio build our business. It founded the business when I was 22 years old with a co-founder who came from the hospitality space. And we just felt we were in love with Salesforce. And we just, we really wanted to see technology built on the Salesforce platform, because we knew, and we still feel, Salesforce is a game changer in enterprise software. So, that's sort of how it's evolved from, looking at how we can tie together CRM, reservation technology, and a great customer booking experience. And, been fortunate enough to get some great team members, some great customers, some great partners and advisors along the way to build what we hope is what can become the market leading product in multi-day reservation technology. So excited to be here.
That's terrific. Thanks, Ragnar. What I love about your story is the fact that you were so young coming into this industry. Clearly, you had the background with your family, a passion for travel, which just about everyone who works in this industry shares for sure. But you actually came at it with kind of a fresh perspective and new eyes. When you mentioned Salesforce, of course, most people are familiar. The people who are familiar with Salesforce obviously know that it was kind of the first real SaaS-based technology platform. And that kind of created a whole new revolution of how technology was being introduced for companies. And is very relevant to the collective conversation today, because although people listening to this, unless they work in the industry, they may not be familiar with your brands. They may not be familiar with Kaptio, ReserveX, or Traveltek, but they're absolutely going to be familiar with all the travel companies that they go and book with and find out that they're actually using your technology. And so you guys are kind of hidden in the background. And on that note, I would actually like to start with a topic that we don't typically cover, is cruise. And that is actually where Rebecca and Traveltek, because if you think about Traveltek, it actually powers a lot of cruises. And I know you're doing a couple of cruises in the new year. You can tell us if you booked them on the platform or not. But
Yeah.
yeah, you did? Okay, cool. But tell us a little bit more about how Traveltek got into the cruise space, and for everyone listening, to help them understand, like, what cruise lines are we talking about and what sites would they be using where they actually are seeing your technology? Be great for you to give us a bit of an overview there.
Yeah, excellent. Well, as I mentioned, I think at the beginning, Traveltek's been in the leisure industry for 23 years. And it was started off as a hotel and flight technology player, and they expanded into the world of cruise. And this was based out in our head office in the UK. This is before the company was taken global. And there was an opportunity to start looking at how the technology and how cruise could be obviously brought together. And from a cruise perspective, it's quite interesting because I've obviously worked in a couple of markets. I've worked in Australia and New Zealand in the Asia market, and now working in the North American market. And the cruise industry is the same across the world. I don't see any difference between the way that Australians are booking cruise, or the way Kiwis are booking cruise, or the way that Canadians or Americans are booking cruise. And I guess just to give some background, Traveltek power around 35% of the cruise bookings that go through the UK market. So we have a very, very large customer base out in the UK. It's obviously where the company was founded, and 35% of the cruise market. Now, the USA has around 50% of the global cruise market. Well, the North America is 50%. Which is quite staggering. And there's a huge opportunity here for technology to kind of take off. And I don't think it has yet. I think there's a lot of old legacy technology in the cruise space. And you mentioned you threw a question at me just before whether I actually booked my cruise through Traveltek. The answer is no, I didn't book my cruise through Traveltek. And the reason is because we're B2B. So I have to still go through a travel agency. So we just provide that technology. But I struggled to find itineraries online. I was using our product to search itineraries, but in order to book, I have to go through a travel agency. And to be honest with you, I really struggled, and it's so frustrating because I see where the improvements can be done, and obviously through our platform, and through other platforms that technology exists, but I just don't think it's been adopted, across the market. And I don't know if the other two, Kelly and Ragnar, whether you've got any comments on that. But I think, the cruise sector is the fastest growing. There's 60 new ships that are going to be brought into the market between 2023 and 2028. And the way to fill those ships is new to cruise. Now, I'm going to classify myself as new to cruise because I've been on one cruise. I've booked two. I've got two in my holiday bucket, but I've been on one. So technically I am new to cruise. I haven't found a cruise line that I'm, attracted to. I don't have is that the right word?
Your brand.
It's my brand. Yeah, correct. I haven't found that yet. And look, I've got a 5-year-old daughter, so I'm going to have a very different experience to somebody without kids. I'm looking at it going, what has the best kids club? What has the best activities? What has the best cruise ports? And so, it's how do we get technology to the point where it's able to be searched like flight and hotel at the moment. So yeah, I think there's been I think there's a huge shift coming in cruise, really, in order to attract these new to cruise, fill these cabins, fill these ships, grow the revenue. I don't know if Kelly or Ragnar, you've got any kind of additional feedback on the cruise sector on top of obviously what I've already mentioned.
No, I think you're spot on. I think there's a shift here in growth, and we see it's just any premium product by the looks of it seems to have had an amazing comeback in the last 12 months, and I think it's going to continue. There's definitely more people spending on experiences and prioritizing that above in their budgets. And I think cruises are a great way to experience the world, and it's going to become more and more open to different generations, and it's not just going to be the classic perception that people have around who goes on a cruise. And there's just more offering. Everyone seems to be building a ship in their existing category, launching into adventure cruising as well. Adventure cruising is getting bigger and bigger every year. And luxury, a couple of new players entering the space with very high-end ships that's gonna change the market. So absolutely agree. There's a shift to more cruising, and help people have to have better experience finding what fits for them, and that's going to be through the travel agent, and it's going to be online as well, for sure. And none of the OTAs have really taken it seriously, but that will change. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think the education is the biggest piece. Is how do you find information online to attract people who have that perception about who cruise is? Because I think, I'm a millennial. And as I mentioned, I've been on one cruise. I've had friends that have never been on a cruise before in their life, and they have no interest in going on a cruise, but they're not educated about it. My parents just recently got off a cruise in Alaska, and my mum was not keen on going on a cruise at all. And she called me 2 nights ago and she said, I really want to do an Alaskan cruise again next year. And how about a Mediterranean cruise in 2025? And I was like, so you've converted then. She loved the idea of jumping on this cruise, waking up in different ports. The experience on board was fantastic. Shout out to Holland America, because that's who they cruise with. And she's converted. She doesn't want to look at any other brand now. She wants to go on Holland America next year. And that's what she set on. And I don't think it takes much. Once you've experienced your first cruise, I think it's quite an easy conversion. But it's the education for the people that haven't cruised before, the education online, working with a travel partner, travel advisor to be able to have that information, but also giving travel advisors the tools to provide the information that the customer or the consumer is looking for, and allowing the travel advisor to convert. And I think there is a gap in the market at the moment, which obviously Traveltek, we're trying to fill that. And I'm sure Kaptio, with your cruise product, that's something that you're looking at as well. So yeah, I think there's a huge opportunity for cruise.
We'll be right back. Elevate your travel business with Traveltek, the specialized digital marketing agency that's transforming how travel companies grow their bookings through digital channels. Brennan, the CEO and a friend of mine, leads a team that's making waves in the travel industry. Traveltek specializes in effective market strategies and expert SEO and paid media services. Visit Traveltek.com. That's Propellic.com. They're extending a special offer to all our Travel Trends podcast listeners. Be sure to mention our show and you'll receive a no-cost marketing audit. Now, back to the show. One of the things is to bring Kelly into the discussion, because I want to make a correlation between cruise and tours. And I was really happy to start on cruise, because if we look at, and if someone wants to look up a graph of travelers from Australia, I remember looking at this in a meeting where you could see the drop off in tours and the dramatic increase in ocean cruise in Australia starting in the 80s and 90s. And tours sort of fell and then flatlined, and cruises just continued to soar as more in Australians. And it's the same in many markets, USA, Canada, UK. All of a sudden, the cruise industry massively took off. But you highlighted a couple of things that actually stood out with regards to the negative stigma attached to any of these products. There's a stigma attached to cruising for adventure travelers that see cruising as not environmentally friendly, to put it very nicely, but also just not the type of experience that they're seeking to be with that many people on a ship. But people also have negative stigma against touring because the idea of being on a coach with 50 people. And so what you mentioned is really important. And for consumers, for travelers, is educating themselves on the experience and really being able to. But what's interesting about what each of you guys do is that you've addressed a need in the marketplace for these travel companies that don't have the technology prowess to be able to implement solutions that will allow them to reach those markets, convert new customers. And so I definitely want to focus on that specific aspect, because I think that's what's going to be compelling and interesting to people is like, what are you bringing to the table to these travel companies that they weren't able to do themselves or figure out for themselves, that they say, I need ReserveX. I need this because it allows me, for example, to have allow people to sell my itinerary to other people, which I know is part of the solution you're bringing to market, Kelly. So question for you would be, is there any cruise in your product roadmap? And even if that's not the case, how do you see this relates to what you're building with ReserveX?
Yeah, cruise is definitely a major part of it. We done some initial implementations with Lindblad and some of the smaller specialty cruise operators and river cruise companies. And, I'd say that with some of those companies, the interfaces, the API interfaces that they have are sort of in the beginning stages, but they're investing and they're building this technology. And, the same in the tour space, multi-day tour space, more and more tour operators are investing in developing connectivity, making their systems open to connections so that we can get real-time data from them. And so I've been working in this space with tour operators and really pushing them over the last 15 years. And we're seeing more and more capabilities, not only just to be able to connect and get the data out, but being able to connect in a more sophisticated way where we can decrement inventory and drive real-time bookings. And I think for the large cruise companies, they've been there for a while providing that capability. But now it's starting to trickle down in terms of the specialty cruises and the smaller multi-day tour operators. And with Kaptio, I find it pretty amazing that with what Ragnar's built and the team at Kaptio to build a SaaS-based platform, and tour operators that have built the large tour operators that have built their own technology have realized that they're not really technologists. They're travel companies, and they realize they need to partner with companies that really specialize in the technology. So, I kind of see the whole industry evolving, Rebecca, like you're saying, and it's really exciting to see how both cruise and multi-day tours can be kind of brought into the electronic distribution world in general.
I think there's quite a bit of power behind having cruise and multi-day tours together and packaged together as well from a product perspective.
Yeah, definitely.
Two different product types that have not been easily accessible to package together. Obviously, the work that you're doing and Ragnar's doing, and obviously Traveltek's doing as well, to be able to bring that together and sell. There are a few companies that I'm aware of that do it really well, but I think there's a power behind that. Being able to offer let's just say 7 to 14 day cruise with a 16-day multi-day tour off the back of that is extremely powerful from a product perspective.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, and it, doubles the commission for the agent as well and creates a customized experience for the traveler. And so we've been looking at that actually, where we line up the cruise dates, the start and end dates with tour dates, and being able to say, hey, if you're on that cruise in the Mediterranean and you're finishing in Venice, here's a wonderful, 7-day land tour that you could add on, and to be able to kind of bolt those things together. If we have real-time connectivity into the tour operators, into the cruises, we can do that now. And so I sort of see things in the beginning stages of the evolution. And I think AI, Ragnar's a big proponent of AI and knows a lot about it. And I think AI and machine learning, not just generative AI, are key components in terms of how we line up these itineraries and how we build personalization into the process for the customer.
I'm keen to get into that a bit more in terms of how Kaptio, how you're positioning it. But just as you both pointed out, one of the travel trends we saw in 23 is as the surge of booking activity came back, people were spending a lot of money on travel, and they were traveling for extended period of time. So the basket size was often substantially higher. And the question is, how long can this be maintained? But you spot on, Rebecca. I mean, the Travel Corporation, we had Uniworld and Luxury Gold. People do a week on a ship and a week on a coach, a premium coach experience. And you have a lot of tour operators that have bought river cruise lines. You got Grand Circle owns River Cruise. You got Globus that has their own river cruise. And even looking at Viking, which basically built the river cruise market and industry, they've gone into ocean cruising and they've gone into land under one brand of Viking. And so on that topic, Ragnar, how, with what you've built out with Kaptio, how are you seeing that trend, and how are you addressing it in the platform you're building out? Is it intended to ingest multiple different products and factor in the needs of cruise and tour operators, which are obviously quite different, which is one of the challenges?
For sure. I think it's like, for us, it was just a lucky accident. I'm not going to say that this was like a master plan all along. Like we knew of a blue wave or blue ocean opportunity and tying together a CRM and a booking system. Okay. And the thinking was that, you start probably at the lowest end of a very fragmented supply chain, which is like destination management companies, who do everything. And we were like really lucky with the Icelandic market because it was growing so fast. And the only thing they had was just throw people at the problem, because this, we were talking to every single travel company in Iceland who did any type of multi-day. And, they only either had like homegrown tech, which was built by, a very, very small team who, if that person left the business, they were, completely done. They couldn't, innovate. Or it was, literally software built in the 80s or the 90s that, they were building their businesses on. And that was like, this was, 2012, 2013, like, for a 23-year-old me, kind of like, okay, this is a disruption opportunity. Like, just bring in true SaaS platform and do it with open technology, and like have the companies be able to innovate on our system, and just build it as simple as we possibly can. Right? That was kind of like the early DNA. Just like make it flexible, because we see a lot of different use cases even in good old Iceland, right? And that sort of was the foundation of our architecture, right? We spent a lot of time getting the data model right so that we could allow the destination management company to do cruise services for Viking, who were coming in on the port in Iceland and Reykjavik, and to help them operate for Education First or for World Strides with a school group that came in. And, so we got it right at the lowest level of the supply chain. And that was our law. And then when we started, going to market with Salesforce, they brought us into all time zones and all distant corners of the world. Without too much, like we've never been marketing ourselves or been too heavy on, doing the event circuit and things like that. It's come, the demand for underlying new technology has just been so high that we are like a magnet. The most ambitious that want to do something different, they just find us. And Salesforce has been a great channel for us that way. And whether it's the downside of it is that you kind of, while you're building it out, you're kind of in no man's land. You're like, you're a jack of all trades and you're great at a lot of things, but you're not the best at one thing, and that's the challenge as you grow. I feel like we've got the best tailor-made product out there, like building tailor-made itineraries, premium itineraries. And we're doing a lot now to, make our cruise offering, particularly for smaller ships, like just absolute best in class. And I think the message that we're sending out is just, you have to unleash and untangle yourself from, the custom systems. Because once you're on an open platform, a SaaS platform, and you're getting, 3 releases a year and you're part of an ecosystem, there's just so much more to explore. And we've just been at the right time with the right product and perceived long enough, I think. That's been our luck.
I don't think there's anything lucky with technology, Ragnar.
Yeah, very true. No, and that's where because my follow-up question was going to be about rail, because it's not only tour, as you mentioned, tailor-made, it's cruise, it's rail. There's so many different aspects to the products you can ingest and then make available for direct bookings or with OTAs. But the one I just wanted to focus on, a trend you guys have all talked about. You've used the term adventure cruising. The expedition cruising, the small ship market, has seen a higher percentage growth than ocean cruising, and a lot of people are converting in that category. So I'd love to go back to Rebecca on this, just to see what you're seeing from Traveltek's point of view with the clients, the customers you have, the ships that you're filling. How significant is that business, and are consumers really choosing those types of expedition trips?
Yeah, it's a growing product for us. So we've been partnered with a few of the expedition cruise lines over the last couple of years, and we have some in the roadmap to integrate with. So I think the demand is there and it's growing. But again, it's that education piece of what expedition cruising is and what the experience that you get on board is. And a lot of people that are doing the adventure cruising or the expedition cruising are very specific about what they want, where they want to go, what itineraries they want. And we're seeing that. But I'd say the large demand for us over the last couple of years has certainly been river cruising. So river cruising is massive for us in the North America region specifically. So Viking is a new one that will be integrated within the Traveltek platform. I think it's very, very soon, and there's a couple others that we're working on as well. So we've got a large pot of river cruise lines existing already. The adventure ones, they're growing. I wouldn't say the demand is massive among our customer base at this stage, but I think it's where the inventory and the product is going in 2024 and 2025. It's going to be quite interesting to see how that changes over the next 12 to 24 months, especially as we're sort of recovering from this COVID period as well.
Rebecca, obviously, I think cruise is fascinating. Interesting to hear, obviously, you're integrating with Viking. And I think this is where, you mentioned about people not being cruisers. And the reality is that if you go you've got a 5-year-old, if you go on a Disney adventure, I'm sure it'd be a spectacular experience. Many of my colleagues who worked in the industry that weren't into cruise, they had kids and they went on Disney and they had the most incredible time, and they're cruisers now, and that, they become lifelong customers. So what's interesting about that at cruise is the same with tours. And I'm sure Kelly feels this way, being a cyclist and an adventurer, is you identify as being an adventure traveler. And so I'm curious to understand how that factored into the technology you've built, because I would think there's a fair amount of competitive advantage there, knowing who that customer is and what is the technology you need to offer to them to keep them coming back on a multi-day organized adventure tour.
Yeah. Well, working with STA Travel, they were one of the largest bookers of multi-day tour experiences, and they had a very high repeat booking rate. And about 40% of the people would come back and book another trip and another one. And the category overall just has a really high customer satisfaction rate with it. And my personal background is, I started with the sort of hardcore adventure side of it, specifically with cycling. And I always thought, well, if I could get people out on bikes, they could experience, the outdoor and the location in a way they just couldn't any other way. But we soon realized that it's more the cultural experiences that people are really tuned into. People like the idea of adventure, but from a market size perspective, it's the cultural engagement types of experiences that are more of a fit with the majority of the market in terms of small group experiences and that sort of thing.
And how do you think those will be sold now, like in 2024? One of the trends of group travel bookings, obviously people have been interested in this category for a while, and more people are getting into this category. The funny thing, when we talk about industry terminology, we actually use the word soft adventure.
Yeah, right.
Which I don't think most adventure travelers want to think of themselves as being soft. But the reality is that most people don't want hardcore adventure. They want what you just described. They want cultural experience. They want immersion. So it's an adventure. But yeah, how do you see people utilizing your technology differently maybe than what you'd previously built with what you've created now, whether it be the partners you work with or the customers that you're trying to appeal to?
Well, I think most of the people that are interested in this category, it starts with Google. It starts with a search, Botswana safari, and specific dates. And, they're starting those searches there. But these are trips that are really special to people and have a sort of a high risk component in terms of booking. So the agent or, somebody that through word of mouth that is, referenced a specific tour operator is an important touch point as well. So, it's really kind of an interesting point where we're at right now in terms of bringing multi-day tours into the mainstream of travel and making it accessible through trusted brands, whether they're online travel companies or traditional travel agencies. And that's the focus of ReserveX, is really delivering a platform that allows the travel industry to plug in and book electronically. And right now, travel agents that specialize in booking multi-day tours are doing it by telephone. There's no shopping capability. There's no tools available to agents that assist in converting the customers. So it takes a tremendous amount of effort and expertise to do it manually. And, the agent's sitting on hold, waiting to talk to a call center agent, and or they're booking on the extranet of the tour operator. So I think there's a real need for the aggregation, not only the aggregation of the content, but the ability to provide tools to agents to be able to book electronically, and the ability to, for consumers who want to book direct, to give them the ability to shop and compare different experiences from tour operators around the world.
Well, the part of your platform that really stood out for me when we were catching up recently and you were kindly taking me through a demo and seeing what the tech that you're building is that when we think about how travel was sold 20 or 30 years ago, we saw there was a lot of student groups and this idea that you would have one or two ambassadors, and those people would convince the next 10 or 20 people to go on a trip. And there were business models that shaped around that, specifically student-focused travel, because that's the stage in your life where you know the most amount of people, you have the most amount of friends, the most amount of influence, so it makes sense. That seemed to, people moved away from that, but all of a sudden there seems to be a resurgence in that concept with social media, with influencers, that all of a sudden you can have a person that wants to take a particular trip, and they can quickly cultivate what we otherwise think is a group tour, that there might be 20 or 30 people to go with them. So tell me a little bit about that, because I really do find that intriguing as a concept and an overall travel trend. Is something that we used to know, that now technology has evolved to a point where it's really easy to create a trip and invite other people. And next thing you know, you've got 30 people doing a custom itinerary together.
Yeah, exactly. We're working on a group booking function that basically allows somebody to become a trip leader. It's called Group It, and allows somebody to be able to easily organize a trip for their group of friends or family, and then be rewarded with a special discount based on the size of the trip. And this group booking functionality is, I think, a real growth area when it comes to multi-day experiences and even cruises, where people can organize trips that they can share with their friends and family. And so we're working on that functionality now, and we hope to roll that out in Q2 of next year, that allows people to basically organize trips on their own and give them the social media tools that allows them to broadcast the trip and find people that are interested. And we're looking at applying that not only to multi-day tours, but to destinations and cruises as well. So I think that's a really exciting area. And yesterday it was announced that We Road, just one of the companies working in this area, raised, I think it was close to $20 million in this category. So it's definitely a growth area, and investors are looking at it and seeing the opportunity in it as well.
No, that's great. And I think it's going to be a huge trend. So I'm glad we're covering it. I want to get everyone else's take on that, specifically Ragnar. I mean, keen to get your take on this, given that overall trend and the flexible booking platform you've introduced and how you work with Kelly. Is that something that you guys are collaborating on, or how is that coming to life for you?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what we're generally seeing in the boardrooms, and we're really fortunate to have very strategic relationship with our customers, is that there's definitely a larger shift to direct traffic, and there's digital transformation going on in the marketing and the sort of web space for most of our customers, where they're building up resilience for capturing more direct bookings. But at the same time, they're not alienating any other channel, and they're actually exploring how other channels can come into the fold. And, group it concept that Kelly's working with is something that, we get a lot of questions around, is there some way where we can build a community and around our brand and extend those communities to influencers or to people who have an incentive to support us. And we've had this use case on our platform in many various forms, all the way from PGA Tour, golf professionals organizing trips and booking together. That's one example that came up, even before the pandemic. And now more and more, you will see people looking at partnering with influencers and other individuals to incentivize this. So I think it's just a general trend of like people want to build up resilience in their channels. They want to have it kind of not go too heavy in one side or not overinvest in one area. What's slowing them down is usually that they just don't have flexibility in their tech stack. They're working on older systems, and that's what we've just been really focused on is just like keeping things simple enough, but flexible enough at the same time, so that you can take advantage of these opportunities. And we're exploring how we can partner with ReserveX and group it in those areas, and that just as like we are exploring how we can work on distribution in a lighter sense, whether it's for OTA or even meta search capability for some of our operators. So I think it's all about just keeping an open strategy in your channel and building up resilience for what will inevitably happen. A large online travel agent, either an existing one or an emerging one, taking up significant market share and doing what happened in another fragmented industry like the hotel space, and just, bullying people a little bit on the commissions until building up that business case. So people are aware of that, and it's fragmented spaces like these where that is all possible to build up that kind of business model. It's just a matter of time. It's a question of when.
Specifically, as you mentioned about the fragmented space, which we'll come to, because I actually want to ask you guys about Booking.com. And in a recent interview that Dan Fogel participated on with Jason Calacanis. So I want to come to that, but I just on this topic though, we're discussing social media. I wanted to get Rebecca's take too on what impact you're seeing from what Ragnar highlighted there, which is that as consumer behavior changes, him and his team have to adapt their platform to make sure that they are responding to that need. And obviously, any of the partners want to see that, is that if people are booking through social channels or getting this whole idea of social commerce, people getting closer to the source of inspiration to get that booking and conversion funnel. I know that that's one of the benefits of working with Kaptio and the team is their flexibility to introduce these new tools and solutions. So how does that look for you at Traveltek? And what are you seeing in terms of social media being a key driver of this booking activity?
Yeah, we've had some quite interesting conversations in the last 6 to 12 months around the social media impact. We've actually signed on quite a fair few startups this year. And look, some of these startups may go on to be the biggest OTA and may be a disruptor, or they may not. But they've got these huge ideas, and a lot of them is around the social media space and the group space, interestingly, as well. So I think that there are entrepreneurs that see where the gap is. I'll give you an example. I spoke to one of our partners yesterday, and he's been a very successful entrepreneur in the document technology space, so completely out of travel. But he's done 15 cruises in the last 2 years with his wife, and he saw the need to create an online platform from a group perspective because he was struggling to be able to invite friends and family to view itineraries, compare pricing, select a cruise, book cabins together. And so he's actually taken our API to do that. Our API is extremely flexible. It gives you the keys to the kingdom. You can do what you need. So with your question around how we're adapting, our technology is quite flexible anyway, because we open up that to allow OTAs, tour operators, wholesalers, cruise agents to be able to build out their own booking journey, their own technology using our API. But going back to, I guess, the social media aspect, I was having a very interesting conversation a couple of months ago with a social media platform where they've got around 1.1 billion followers combined that has access to this platform, which is an insane amount of people. And so, the influencer model, and, you have a look at the social media platforms that are out there today. You've got TikTok, you've got Instagram. Look, I've booked my holidays based on what I've seen on TikTok. I've been, blindly scrolling through in my afternoon because my daughter's got my head in. I just need to zoom. I just need to, unfocus. And I'm going through and I'm seeing this amazing itinerary of this amazing hotel. I'm like, that's on my bucket list now. I want to see it. And so it is moving to that point. So I guess to tie that all together, Traveltek's technology is extremely flexible. With our API technology, companies can take that and do what they want with it. Keys to their kingdom, they can build it out. So we don't limit based on our desktop tool or our back office system. It's purely, here's our API, you do what you need to do with it. And we're seeing that happen now with some very interesting and exciting companies.
Very cool. Very cool. We'll be right back. I wanted to let you in on a little secret. I recently had the pleasure of meeting one of the least known but more successful travel AI startups. They are aptly named TravelAI.com, and they are based in Vancouver, Canada. I'm really pleased that they have agreed to be one of our founding sponsors of not only the Travel Trends AI Summit, but also our podcast. Travel AI shares our vision that the applied use of AI is going to disrupt all facets of the travel industry and help users in a more efficient travel market for both the demand and supply sides of our industry. You can learn more about their plans at travelai.com or join us at the Travel AI Summit to hear their vision for creating a better, more personalized travel experience. Now, back to the show. Now, the booking trend around, so when Ragnar was just mentioning the fragmented tours and activity space, which still really excites me because there's still so much untapped opportunity. I guess, Kelly, you were recently watching Glenn Vogel be interviewed by Jason Calacanis. Do you want to tell everyone a bit about that? Because I think that's a great conversation starter for where we can go next with highlighting this was as a trend, recognizing how businesses are positioning themselves.
Well, I've always been sort of interested in why OTAs don't just create that tour tab, and so Jason Calacanis, who's a well-known, angel investor, has some really big hits with Airbnb and others. He interviewed Glenn Fogel, the CEO of Booking.com, and asked Glenn at part of the conversation, the increase in experiences, because he's getting companies that are applying to his incubator. And Glenn's take on it was that, he really classified it as excursions. He really sees flight, hotel, once you get there, seeing, getting on a tour bus and going around the city, and that's your experience, as opposed to selling an experience or a destination that's wrapped in specific activity and about that cultural engagement process. And I just thought, he's just missing the entire opportunity when it comes to specialty cruises or cruises in general or multi-day tours, and what the focus is of these trips and the destinations and really having a unique experience. And so I just found it interesting. I thought it'd be an interesting thing to discuss, part of this.
Before the pandemic, and so while we were, while Kaptio was growing up, so 2015, 2016, we were so jealous of day tours, right? All this money floating into day tours, all this disruption, and even more fragmented space than we are in. And day tours were having a really big moment, and I think that was all thanks to all those technology companies like Bokun and Resti and Fair Harbor, and those guys. Like they came together and they simplified the schema. They made it easier to do distribution. They didn't do these crazy lock-in contracts. You could easily switch between vendors and be flexible. And there were some, great players that took advantage of that, like Get Your Guide and so on. And I think this room here, these vendors that we're talking now about here, we have to build our own moment for multi-day. Like, because like 8 years ago, multi-day travel, like that term didn't even exist. Like really, like multi-day touring was still just looked at as, small, group touring and maybe small group touring. And now multi-day touring is kind of like this offset against day touring. And we have to build this opportunity and convince guys like Glenn Fogel that it's not just the tour tab, it's the multi-day tour tab, and it's the cruise tab, and it's the adventure travel tab. And I think that's the power of what we have in our hands right now to build that future. And it starts with the technology. And like you were saying, Rebecca, like the people who see that opportunity. And that's the cool thing. Like I always wear two hats. Like I'm the strategist for the conservative boardroom who have been doing this for sometimes 3-4 generations in the family. And then you go into a new room of new people who have not grown up in this industry, and they see it completely differently, kind of like I did in the beginning. And they are going so fast, and they are seeing all these opportunities in different ways than we are, and that the incumbents are. And that's gonna rattle things. There's a lot of traffic that's going into these stock markets and new business models. That's very exciting.
Also after the pandemic, there's been a reset in terms of what people are wanting to do with travel. There's been such a resurgence of people wanting not only to travel, but to go to the destinations and do the things that they've always wanted to do. And I think that for a lot of people, whether Gen Z or millennial travelers or even older travelers, they want to do these sorts of special trips that they've always wanted to do. My mom just went on a luxury quilt. She's a quilter, and she went on a luxury quilting tour in the UK with her friends, and whereas quilting at Kensington Palace and all kinds of amazing experiences. And so I think it transcends different groups and people wanting these types of unique experiences. And from a business model perspective, it's cruises and multi-day tours is the highest commission product in the industry today.
Yeah.
And to Glenn's point, well, it may not be may not be high volume from the perspective of hotel bookings or air bookings, but it is a segment that's growing, particularly with younger travelers, particularly Gen Z and millennial travelers. And I think it was Arrival did a report on this, saying that there's over 10,000 tour operators, and the small tour operators are the ones that are really growing. 3 in 5 of these 10,000 tour operators are small and young. Nearly 3 in 10 are young, small tour operators. So it is a growth area, and it's a long-term growth area from the perspective of really attracting the Gen Z and millennial markets.
I'm going to check the search volume after our recording for quilting in Kensington Palace.
Yeah, it was hunt operators called Opulent Quilt Journeys. It was an Australian company she went with, and she's 83.
That is a way to get an 83-year-old traveling.
And she had all these trips planned, and then the pandemic hit, so she had to cancel a bunch of things. And then, like, as soon as it was over, it was like back on it, traveling and kind of ratcheting things up with even more specialty types of trips. So whether it's older people, Gen X or millennial or Gen Z, there is a broad segment of customers to target for these types of experiences. And I think, Ragnar, to your point, it's like, OTAs, new OTAs, or traditional agencies. I think there's just a huge market for this opportunity. Will it be as big as, air and hotel? That's debatable, but it is a large and growing segment to target. And the exciting thing is that the technology is there now.
That will open up new products, right? I always feel like, a little bit of a hypocrite, because I'm, coming from Iceland. I'm super passionate about Iceland and the growth opportunity we have there. But at the same time, I feel like I'm only powering the incumbents and the largest in our space in English speaking markets. And sometimes I think about the untapped opportunity of providing, the tooling we have here to countries and areas and regions where, there could be a tremendous opportunity to build a multi-day business in a sort of B2C DMC model, like, sorry, too many sites, but like a destination management company, a company that typically only serve tour operators, they are now going to market and selling directly to customers from their country in destination with all the knowledge they have and expertise and maybe their own product. So like, I feel that once we get into that stage of evolution, where we are seeing more and more of these companies crop up outside the English speaking markets, that's where we've reached a really interesting pinnacle where, and that's easy for them to distribute and get customers without being too dependent on the traditional supply chain, being able to go direct to customers, like what happened with Rusty and Boken, being able to get customers via Get Your Guide for, somebody who just, literally put up a sign next to the road, and now I'm offering day tours or what, obviously a different price point, but it's the same opening that creates for our industry. And that's exciting to think about how we can support that.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, because I had a chance to meet Jason Calacanis in September at the Skift conference. And I was wearing my Travel Trends shirt, and I got a nice picture of the two of us together, because I'm certainly a fan of the All In podcast. And after that episode aired, Marius Nagan, who runs iWander, who I work with closely and I think very highly of, he sent me a message because he just listened to it. He's like, he clearly listens to your show, because he was asking all about travel trends. Travel trends was what he referenced a number of times in that episode, trying to pull out the travel trends. I'm like, well, hopefully he's listened to the show, but either way, he maybe have subconsciously picked up on the t-shirt. But the most important outcome of that was the fact that, unlike all of us who work in this space and see how substantial the opportunity is, I, for many years, was like the Henry Kissinger role, trying to work as a Secretary of State or lobbying to those OTAs to convince them that there was a big market here. And and I'm still shocked and amazed that there's not that realization. And so I'm of two minds about it. One, obviously, you think it would be a great opportunity if they got into this space for how much business they could introduce to a lot of companies. So that was always the benefit. But on the other side of that, I think it creates a massive opportunity for each of you, for Kaptio, for ReserveX, and certainly for Traveltek, is that if they're not coming into this space, actually that's great news, because that gives you cover from the largest operator. They spend $1 out of every $13 that Google receives in revenue comes from Booking.com, because they have a very well-defined model of OTA and consumer acquisition. So I would love to, you also touched on something else about the millennial traveler. Obviously, Rebecca, you fit into that audience, but I'd love to understand how you're seeing that younger consumer, because when I think of like Hopper's success, for example, and look at Expedia and what just happened with Booking.com, what I actually see is a big separation between their core audience being like 40 plus, the big OTAs. And when you look at Hopper's audience, 80% of it's under 35, and they don't use those OTAs. So actually, I thought what was the most exciting outcome of Skift as well was to see, I don't say hostility, but the fact that Expedia and Expedia specifically have turned their back on Hopper. And as Fred Lalonde will say from Hopper, it was a competitive reason, nothing else, nothing to do with customer service. But that also highlights to me this next generation of travelers coming up, how fearful some of the older incumbents are of the companies that are really connecting with this audience. And so, keen to get your view on that, especially because they repeat at a higher rate. That's another thing. Like they travel more frequently, so they're more avid in their purchases. So Ragnar, how are you approaching that? And then Rebecca, I want to get your take as well.
I think that the repeat, so what's been exciting is in the beginning, this was like the product decisions in the beginning was, we're more thinking about it as a transactional process. Of course, like building on a CRM and everything, it was all about collecting the right data to make the journey as smooth as possible. But like nobody was like really thinking like their buying criteria was not on, let's increase our repeat rate, like in 2013, 2014, 2015, because it was still such a young industry and people were consolidating and creating these these parent companies where we had all of these brands and PTC really led the way, and Travelopia and things like that to figure out how to remarket among a different product type across the brand. And that was sort of now almost every discussion starts with, our repeat rate is X, you want to get it to Y, right? And that's such an interesting thing that's happened because people are just traveling more often, especially after the pandemic. So what we always are thinking about is just, it doesn't matter what the channel is. You have to get your product visible out there. You have to get it, to drive new passenger growth in particular. You have to get out there. You have to, have a diverse set of channels, and a third-party marketing channels. But if you can capture them on your website and you can create a great buying experience, it doesn't matter if it's a $20,000 booking. It doesn't matter, because what's also happened is that Tesla, you can't go and you can't buy a Tesla in a dealership anymore. You have to pay for that online as well. And people are getting more and more comfortable. But the brand experience and the brand trust is so important to capture that booking. Otherwise, you just if you can put all the marketing you want, but if you got a bad booking experience, and it's not trustworthy to a first-time booker who might be interacting with your brand, and they're just going to abandon cart, and you're starting from scratch. So digital transformation is starting there. It's figuring out not only how do we get this to the website, but also how do we build that really great conversion process.
Yeah. Look, and I agree with that message, because we actually had a customer who launched their website, and one of the very first bookings that went through, there was a $50,000 cruise. This customer that purchased this cruise online through this cruise agent had never been to the website before. They weren't a previous customer. They weren't within their system at all, and they went online and they purchased it. So I don't think that there is hesitation from consumers anymore to be spending that amount of money online, but it comes down to, does that consumer trust the brand? What is their experience online? Look, I spend majority of my day searching through websites, doing competitor work, looking at what the experience is on travel advisors' websites. And I have to say, there is a lot of content that's not being bought online. The consumer's forced to call, that you can't really tell what their product offering is. Yes, of course, there are some brilliant websites out there that are offering, more unique experiences, but I think that is where the millennial experience is going. I myself, as you mentioned, I'm a millennial. I'm looking for certain experiences where I'm going online. I'm dynamically searching for pricing and experience. So I'm not necessarily going for the cheapest, but I am comparing across multiple different sites in order to make sure that I'm comfortable with my purchase. And so when you can't do that, that consumer's not going to go back to your website to have a look. So I think that's where it's shifting to. And if you're not bringing your content online, you're not bringing your product online, you're not working on your brand online, you're losing awareness.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. And I think as we think about that younger generation and the new technology that they're embracing, but it's not just them with ChatGPT and these AI tools. I mean, they're reaching across the spectrum. And so I have to ask you guys that in our conversation today, with how each of you are embracing AI for 2024. And then, of course, I want to give you guys the last word. So if there's any additional insights that you want to share, we can cover those too. But in terms of AI, Kelly, is that something that is core to what you're building now? How important is that? I know it's very important to Ragnar, and then Rebecca will come back to you to understand how that's going to impact Traveltek in 2024 as well. But how are you viewing AI and how are you incorporating that technology?
Well, we look at, the machine learning aspects of personalization as the primary focus for us. Generative AI is amazing and fascinating technology, but I think the real shift in travel will come when we can do true personalization and recommendations that will actually change the look to book function and increasing booking conversion. And that's what we're focused in on, specifically around like itineraries that combine cruise and land, these sorts of things around the customer profile that's tied into a CRM type function. That's what we're looking at from a generative AI perspective and ChatGPT and OpenAI. I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity there as well. And I know Ragnar's kind of focused on that area.
It's just, everyone's trying to figure this out. I love working with the upstarts because they are kind of in a move fast and break things mode, which is, you see them attempting a lot and trying to get a competitive advantage early. I found myself like just posting on LinkedIn a lot in the beginning. And when sort of ChatGPT came out, because I'm just so excited about the opportunity. I feel like it's like the cloud, era, but now just 20 years later with a completely different opportunity in front of us. And, I know that it's going to change things drastically. The ones that are going to take advantage of it earlier are going to, they're playing a little bit with fire. They don't have as tough of a brand reputation to protect as some of the bigger guys. The bigger guys will be more conservative in their use, but there will be playbooks coming out of these younger companies. And because we're so tightly coupled with Salesforce, and they are bringing out some incredible tooling that we got really early access to and built prototypes and betas and first versions of on their technology that leverages OpenAI AI and Anthropic's models. So all I know is generative AI is your best salesperson if you tune it correctly, if you figure out what data to feed it, and whether that is supporting the call center agents through a co-pilot type functionality, or whether it's doing true personalization online in the booking experience that people are investing so much money on to get right. The tooling is going to become more and more accessible in the coming weeks, months, and years. And it's going to be a ride that those who jump on early, they have a tremendous opportunity to create an edge and, learn faster than those who are more conservative. So that's a push to both big companies and an encouragement to the young startups that should be taking advantage of this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we Traveltek, we've been working with a few startups. I mentioned this earlier, who are adopting AI into their booking journeys, which I think is super exciting. Traveltek itself, we've adopted AI into our engineering, so into our coding. We have AI that sits behind that. I don't know too much about it. I'm not an engineer, but our team's super excited, with that technology because it speeds things up. And one of the things that we did with our cruise product, and we saw this happen over COVID, and it kind of unstuck us a little bit. And we've taken those learnings and introduced AI into it. Was all the cruise itinerary changes over COVID, and obviously the redistribution of ships across the world. We have a content team that sits in India who looks after our cruise product in that space. But we're looking at how we can introduce AI to make that process more efficient. So it's the most up-to-date itineraries, the most up-to-date pricing. There's small things that our team are doing to bring AI in, which is super exciting. I think a lot of people get nervous about AI. What does it mean for their job? What does it mean for the future of, their position and things like that? I think it's exciting because I think it opens up new opportunities. I was part of a conversation at Focusrite a couple of weeks ago about completely autonomous planes. And I was like, that is AI that I cannot adapt to. I don't think I could jump in a plane that is completely autonomous. I know a lot of it is already, but the thought of having no pilot in there. So I think, that's my mindset that I need to get over but I think there's some really exciting things coming up with AI, and I'm particularly seeing it in startups. That is where majority of the demand for AI is coming through. We have some very large partners in the US who I've not heard them once mention AI. So I'm quite interested to see what happens over the next 12 to 24 months with AI, with startups, OTAs, and then existing travel companies, and what they're actually going to do to adopt that and to make sure that these startups coming through, they're disruptors. We call them disruptors, and that's quite exciting.
Yeah, we've now kicked open a door that we need to have another session just on AI. I said to the team, let's leave it towards the end, but now there's so much I want to contribute and share on this topic. But Ragnar mentioned something that I think was quite profound and important, which is that the companies that are embracing AI are going to get so far ahead out of the ones that are not, and that's the concept of machine learning. And so the sentiment of what you're sharing, Ragnar, is consistent with a colleague, friend of mine, Jordan Jacobs, who runs a VC fund called Radical Ventures. And interestingly, the reason I mention him and his company is they don't invest at all in travel because they see so many opportunities to implement AI in other industries that have massive growth potential. So, but then you even have people like Glenn Fogel that are in the travel sector that get the size of the industry and really, don't have the full appreciation or attention on tours. So there's so many different layers to this. And the last thing I'll say on this topic, because you just mentioned it right there too, Rebecca, is that there's this fundamental question is who benefits most from AI? Is it the incumbents or is it these new scrappy startups? And just like you at Focusrite, I was talking to one of the sessions, Paul English, the founder of Kayak, co-founder of Kayak. he had
Yeah.
mentioned to me the night before at the bar, which is where some of the business gets done, of course, at Focusrite. And then he had told me that he was going to announce the kayak killer the next day. And so I was sitting next to his CEO, Nico, and two of my colleagues from Nicer. And we were waiting for the moment that eventually came where he announced the kayak killer. And I was like, this is going to go all over PR and the news. And sure enough, it did. But it was the fundamental question of who has the advantage. Is it kayak because of all of their years and customers and branding and technology? Or is it a small upstart with a super smart CTO like Paul with 10 people and AI? And so I want to highlight companies like yours that are, really going to revolutionize and change our industry. So this conversation has delivered on all of my expectations. I was, and I would like it to go for another 90 minutes, but I realize we'll have to do a second installment. But I would love to get your final take, and we'll go back in the order that we started. So we'll go back to you, Rebecca, and then Kelly and Ragnar. Please let people know how they can follow up with you, learn more about your company, and then if there's any kind of final takeaway or insight you wanted to share.
Yeah, look, I'm obviously Traveltek. We're quite interested to speak with businesses who are looking at their tech stack and what they want to get out of it in the next 12 to 18 months as they look to invest. We know it's quite a daunting process when you're starting to kind of look at redoing your tech. And Ragnar kind of said a little bit earlier that he operates as a strategy and a consultant head. And I'd like to say we do the same thing. We go into boardrooms and we consult on our product. We'll also consult on businesses and how they can implement tech into their world. And I've said as a customer, I know it's daunting. I've done it. I've done tech migrations. So if anybody wants to have a chat, high level, doesn't have to be, necessarily about what Traveltek does, but just our experience, and more than happy for them to reach out. As I mentioned, our core product is cruise. So I'm obviously interested to anybody who wants to get into the ocean river expedition cruising space. I'd say reach out to me on LinkedIn, but I think my last name's going to throw a few people. So if you head to traveltek.com, my details are on there and somebody will be able to reach out, or Rebecca@traveltek.net. Send me a note. I'd be happy to have a chat.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Rebecca. Great to have you on here. And Kelly?
Thank you.
Yeah, I think, the category of experiences it's an exciting time, both on the technology side in terms of allowing people to connect and shop and book online, and the overall category of what we're focused in on. And so with ReserveX, we're really looking forward to launching our product and allowing agencies and OTAs to be able to add this category, and working closely with companies like Kaptio to do that. And if you want to get a hold of me, it's just Kelly@reservex.com.
Nice. Brave man putting his email out there. That's great. Thanks, Kelly. Really terrific to have you part of this discussion as well, giving not only our long-standing relationship, but the exciting developments you're working on. I think you guys have formed a really nice group. And so Ragnar, over to you, because obviously you guys are good friends.
Yeah, thanks. I think that, to the core of what we keep doing in this industry is we have great brands with great products that try to attract, a diverse set of customers, and that will continue to happen. We're all just trying to figure out a way to do it more efficiently. As technology evolves, you need to choose your technology that will evolve with you. I've seen so many variations of the same thing when it comes to strategic decision making, and what people need to anchor around is what's best supported around a great brand, a great product, and a great customer experience. And that's where you start, set your objective there, and then you find partners to support you on that journey. And just super thankful and humble that we've been having access to those type of conversations and to this conversation. And I think that we are, reaching an incredible evolution in multi-tech. And it's fun to be, we're all here, all four of us here. It feels like we're, category makers in this industry, which is super exciting. So this has been a great conversation.
Yeah, thank you. I think you all have great reputations, both personally and professionally, and that should be now clear to anyone who's meeting you for the first time or coming to know you and your company. Why? And this industry is all about relationships, as we all know. And so, you establish that credibility over a period of time. And I think you guys are all very well poised to be very successful. So I wish you every success in keeping in touch as your businesses continue to evolve. So thank you again for making the time with us.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks,
Thank
Dan.
you.
Thanks everyone for listening to the latest episode of Travel Trends. We'll see you on the next show. Thanks so much.